moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly. Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart.
Hello and welcome to Speaking Moistly, everyone. With me today is Jilly. How you doing, Jilly?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Did I get your name right? Did I mess it up?
Yes, you
Ha!
did. Just think Jill with the Y.
I know
It's
that's
easy.
what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking last time. I was like, I could do this. I could do this. Names aren't that
It's okay.
intimidating.
No, and I answered to just about everything.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Hey, you kind of works.
I've been accused of that every now and then. Every so often, I'll like, not pointedly not use people's names, but be like, catch their eye, and be like, hey, nice seeing you. I think it's a Canadian thing. I think people are terrible with names
Probably.
generally.
Yes, I think so. And we're the nice people, so we just try to make it sound good.
It's
Like,
true.
hey, buddy,
You go with it. You're
friend,
like, oh, okay.
pal.
And with masks now, you can almost convince yourself that they said your name and you just didn't hear it because you couldn't see what the heck they were talking about. Okay.
Exactly.
Did you?
Exactly. Yeah.
Last week, 2 weeks ago, there was a whole bunch of states that were having these lotteries for if you get the jab, you get entered into a lottery and you could win $1 million. And I thought to myself,
Among all the other incentives to get a jab, yes.
yeah,
Like
right.
marijuana, joints for jabs. Love
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah. Who doesn't love joints for jabs?
Lap dances for jabs.
Is this John Tory's Toronto? Uh-oh. Lap dance.
I don't even know where it is. I'm just like, well, who's giving the lap dance? Because that could be interesting.
Yeah. It's certainly, well,
Okay, let's.
yeah, we won't go there. In Manitoba, and I thought to myself, if this comes to Canada, and I'd already seen in Canada they were offering, if you get the jab, you get somebody had offered a free small ice cream cone. I'd seen I'd seen the CFIB was
That was in Toronto.
the ice cream cone.
They were. That was one of them anyway, because in that the square, what is that called? Right downtown Toronto.
Nathan Phillips Square.
Nathan Phillips Square. They were offering the day they had this big thing going on, and they were offering the kids ice cream to come and get their jab.
I did see, yeah. All the coercion and the, like, even having the incentives, I think is really offside. But as soon as I saw we're paying cash money, you could win, I thought this is really around the bend. Like,
This is like the worst kind of drug pushers on steroids. Like,
yeah,
it's what are they trying to get us addicted to something? Because it's really starting to sound like there's something there.
yeah. Well, and the idea that these vaccines, these things that they're pushing, need so much of a media push, so much property. Like, here's ice cream, here's marijuana, here's all sorts of crazy stuff. Here's freedom. You could have some freedom back, right? Like Justin Trudeau in the House of Commons said people who are vaccinated should have more freedoms than those people who aren't vaccinated.
Yeah.
That's concerning. And now Manitoba,
Apartheid state.
yeah, it is an apartheid state, right? I remember watching movies that told me that was a bad idea. And being a child of the 80s,
Wasn't that
the
the
movies
thing?
are always right.
Exactly. It just keeps coming back to that whole idea of, okay, wait a second. We've been down this road before, and we grew up being told this was not good.
Yeah, like, this is a
So
bad idea.
who didn't get the memo? Like, honestly.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting bait and switch. So Manitoba is going down this pathway, and I think that if it wasn't the government, do you think that a private Canadian corporation could run a lottery? I remember when I was younger, I wanted money. I was very like, money's good. I like to work, and I was 18 or 19 at the time, and not very not marketable. I was going to school and stuff, right? But I was like, man, these ads calling for medical experimentation, that doesn't sound so bad. $5,000 to let them do that? I never did it, but I thought, man, that's a great idea. But now we're in a situation where they're like, they're not even going to pay you directly. They're like, you could win. Like, if you come in here and let us inject this to you, you might win.
Yeah. And you've got better odds than like, what is it, Lotto 649 or anything, because there's less people.
Yeah, you and 12 people together, we'll split it, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you done the math on this? No.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
It is. It is, and
Eh,
it's jarring to see the government rush headlong into a coercion campaign like this after spending. I was talking on my show this morning about I'd love to see how much money the unions are using to lobby the government and to spend on it and spending on advertising for school. Like the schools are still closed in Ontario here,
mhm.
which is a mercy because the kids aren't sitting in class masked at 30 degrees or whatever, so that's a good thing. But the
Yeah.
the social and the other impacts are massive and just terrible. But
Mhm.
you don't see this kind of thing historically. And now that we're in this situation where the government's like, here's your chance to win, it feels very icky.
It's creepy. It's
Yeah.
really creepy. I mean, coercion for a medical process. I mean, we've never had that for flu shots. We've never had that for anything else.
Yeah.
Why this?
Yeah. Even a bad flu year. And I think that 2018 was like one of the worst flu years in recent memory anyway. Um,
Mhm.
two kids died in the same school in Guelph of the flu. It was a horrible thing. You know what public health did?
Mhm.
Nothing.
Nothing.
They didn't do anything. There was an
Oh,
article in the
we're
news.
sorry about this child
Yeah,
or
they were like,
children
this is
that
terrible.
passed.
Yeah, they
Hmm.
said this is terrible. They said the cases aren't really related. We can't find any epidemiology that connects them.
Hmm.
Shucks. Today,
Yeah,
like,
bad.
and it would be a very scary thing. But there was a time when like sanity ruled, and you can't shut down an entire economy because some people might get sick, right? Like it doesn't work like that. I don't think.
Especially when the ones getting sick are mostly retired anyway.
Yeah, or
So
older than the average age of death in the country that we currently live. So like if you
exactly.
get sick and die of COVID, that's a terrible, terrible, awful tragedy. But if you're
Hmm.
84, maybe something might have got you soon anyway. And like not that that's not terrible. It's a
It's
tragedy.
all tragic, and that's the thing. None of us are saying that that's, oh, sucks to be you. That's not the attitude. The attitude is that, every death is a tragedy. It's sad. But you know what? If you're well into your 80s, which is over the average age of like the mortality rate
Mhm.
in this country anyway, every year is a bonus
Yeah,
anyway. And
yeah.
it's not to say, I mean, I listened just recently to an interview with a 95-year-old that fought in World War II, and it was brilliant.
Hmm.
And that's amazing to get to hear from that kind of experience. But at the same time, why would you shut down an economy for someone who's coming to the end of their life?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and they know they're coming to the end of their life, and you know
yeah,
yeah, it's all madness. I mean, those the working age,
yeah. All
why?
healthy people. Yeah, the
Mhm.
golf guy. One of the things is punishing. It seems like we're punishing the people who are
Mhm.
healthy
Yep.
for daring to want to go out and live. We're punishing the business owners and the restaurants and the salon owners, and all for these elderly people who
Mhm.
I don't know that they would want that. I don't know that they would say if I could live another
I don't think any of
year,
them want to.
right? Like,
I don't think because they want to see their grandkids and great
yeah,
grandkids. They want
yeah,
to be out having coffee with their friends. Like
hmm,
they lived a good life and they want to still be able to do things.
yeah,
Um, in a way, they're living an empty, hollow life at this
yeah,
point anyway, because they're not allowed to live in
yeah.
the current situation. And you've seen, I'm sure, that there's a crazy person in Britain who wants it to be mandatory
Oh
that
yeah,
these
I
things stay
reported on that
forever,
this morning.
like
Yeah,
seatbelts.
yeah,
Yeah.
ha, like seatbelts.
Yeah.
These
Like a seatbelt,
false
you got to put
false
a mask
comparison.
on as soon as you leave your house
Uh,
because you could die of something.
yeah,
We don't know what.
here's your helmet.
Air. The
Issued by
air
the
will kill you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Short bus and hockey stick. Yeah. Or what? No, what is it? Short bus and hockey helmet. That's the
yeah,
one.
yeah. I mean, it used to be that if there was a danger, you carried around a sword, right? If you live in the United
Hmm.
States, you've got a concealed carry and you're fine. Now,
Yep.
wear your mask. It's it doesn't make and the science behind this is just
And hey, maybe we should get bulletproof vests and yeah, do the whole bit.
Well,
So how about we just dress in hazmat suits
I
and
think
bubbles
that
and we'll be fine.
even for yeah, right, but even forgetting about like traffic accidents which kill people who
Hmm.
are not intending to die.
Outlie those terrible cars. Yeah.
Right,
Hmm.
right, yeah, like we don't outlaw cars. The government still allows sales of tobacco, and how many people does tobacco kill every year because of lung cancer? The government doesn't
Hmm.
regulate sugary drinks, and not that I want them to regulate sugary drinks, but it
No, they've
seems
done
like
that in the UK. They did that for a while,
oh, did
and it
they?
didn't
Yeah,
go over well. Yeah.
yeah, I bet not, right? Like, but they can't regulate
Without
things like
thinking
that.
that those the fake chemical in the diet soft drinks that are
Hmm.
not taxed the same
Hmm.
are actually worse for you long term health wise than the sugar in the regular soda.
Really, that's
Yeah.
concerning.
The all those artificial sweeteners are so horrible. It's like the fake meat that they have now. Anybody gives
Yeah,
me a fake, I'm not going to be happy because it's all just chemicals.
yeah.
It's not real.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing. It's a very interesting situation with the meat. I go to grocery shopping usually for my family, and
Mhm.
in the meat aisle is this like Beyond Meat, and I always think it's interesting that the Beyond Meat people are like forming it into sausages and things. If you want to be Beyond Meat, be Beyond. Don't pretend to be meat. We're so Beyond Meat that we look exactly
Yeah.
like meat. It's like what?
Yeah, vegans, go away now. We don't
Yeah.
want your chemicals. I mean, these are the ones that like they're vegans because they think that meat is so terrible for their bodies, but they're more than happy to put all these chemicals in.
Mm,
Okay.
mm.
Sure.
It's a very
Yeah.
strange thing. It's a very strange
It's
thing
like
to
an
live through.
upside down and backwards world. I just
It is.
I
It
can't
is.
figure out any of it. It's insane.
I think that's by design. I think that's what people. I think that's the purpose currently of our current washing machine style news cycle. That's what we get. All right, let's get into. Oh, that's free speech. No, let's get into XL. You wanted to end on free speech. Let's get into XL.
Yeah.
XL pipeline is dead. It's dead.
Yes.
She's dead, Jim.
Dead.
What is the feeling
Yep.
on the ground out there? People expected this? Like Biden canceled it. A
Yeah.
billion dollars on the 1.3.
Yep. Yep. That should be fun. Kenny's going to get slaughtered for that as
Yeah,
well. I mean, among the various things that he's being pilloried for
he's
at the
not helping
minute.
himself.
No, no, sadly he's not. And this is, but I mean, everybody knew this was going to happen. It sort of um, goes with the territory in Alberta.
Hmm.
It just seems incredibly frustrating that all of this stuff is actually going to wind up costing Canada as a whole in the
Hmm.
end, because what winds up happening is we should be in this country oil self sufficient. We have the resources to do that. We've been supposedly attempting to do that since the 1970s, and it's never really come to pass
It doesn't seem
because
like it.
you can't. No, no, it hasn't. I mean, it should be sort of in national interest to get refineries going and to make sure that the pipelines are getting the oil, the bitumen, in our case, to those refineries like in New Brunswick.
Mhm.
But that's like, oh no, that's dirty oil. We'd rather have it from other countries that aren't trying to be environmentally friendly or,
Mhm.
pardon me, or who could give a toss about human rights. Although in Canada now, do we really care about human rights? But that's
Do we?
an aside.
It doesn't seem
um,
like we do. Yeah.
Not anymore. No,
No.
it just seems like, whatever. That charter thing, toilet paper. Yeah, we needed more toilet paper, right?
Yeah.
That was a thing.
Yeah. I've been talking about that for a little while on the show on Canada Poly, talking about how it seems like we're under a version of martial law that doesn't include our charter. It's like a loose framework of laws that totally allows anybody from anywhere to come to Canada, but frowns on Canadians traveling to their cottage. And
Well, and it seems that
there's a lot of racial aspects to the current martial law
oh,
situation as well, but they're harder to discern. They're more difficult to figure out.
yes. Yeah, it's like a Pandora's box. As soon as you start looking at some of the stuff, then it's like, whoa, there's
Yeah,
all this other stuff
yeah.
that you kind of go, what is going on? Because it seems, from what I'm understanding anyway, if you're a Canadian citizen who's traveled abroad and comes back into Canada, you still have to go to the COVID hotels. But if you're a foreigner coming in to Canada for
Hmm.
whatever reason,
Yep.
you don't.
Yep.
You're just
Y-
told to go to your like wherever you're staying.
Whatever your plan
And
is. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So why is it punishing to the Canadian citizen, but everybody else is okay? And there's another thing that came up. I think it was yesterday I saw it, where they're saying that there's the border crisis in the United States with all the South Americans flooding across at something like 180,000 per day,
Yep.
or trying to get across. And apparently, one of our ministers, and I don't know which one it was, could be any of them because they all sound the same anyway, said, "Oh, just send some of those migrants up to Canada. We'll take some."
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness.
Like,
Yeah.
um, you want the borders closed to
Yeah.
Canadians and Americans,
Yeah.
but anybody else, it's all good because if you say anything against that, it's racist.
If you even have an opinion against that, it's not just even racist. It's white supremacy, and
Yes.
it's like I can't figure out why. And they've had to change the name of
Hmm.
white supremacy now. They're calling it ideologically driven violent extremism. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's got this acronym and stuff. So they realize that people aren't believing this because it's completely made up garbage, horseshit.
It is. Apparently, Alberta is just ripe with white supremacists, according to a Toronto university. I'm like, have you been here?
Yeah, right.
You
Like,
should maybe come for a visit,
yeah,
because
yeah.
that's not really the lived experience. But
Yeah,
whatever.
but you see, and I like one of the things that I try and fight against, or not fight against, but like Canadians are so disengaged that when the newspaper says
Hmm.
Canada is full of white supremacists, they think they're talking about other people who are not me. And they don't realize that
Yep.
the newspaper is talking about you. They're talking about
Yep.
you. You're the white supremacist that they would really rather not be around. And that is difficult for Canadians to accept. If you point it out to them, they say, no, they're talking about all those white supremacist groups. And you say, who? Antifa? Black Lives Matter? Those groups? Which white supremacist groups are currently active in Canada? And like trying to get
Hmm.
an answer is like pulling teeth. But now we've got this. Are we
Well,
going to get into this London thing? Like we could talk about this.
oh,
And
we could.
the vitriol
That
that's
was
coming out about that.
horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah.
I watched the whole thing, and it was punishing to my intellect. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Did you see? Did they show the 2 minutes at the end by the guy who said what's happening in London,
In
Ontario?
Jerusalem.
Is this? Yeah, it's the same things happening in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Wow.
As
Right.
soon as I heard that, I'm like, oh my goodness. And there was one of the city councilors that was just as vile. The only one that seemed to be saying that anytime there's any kind of hate or any kind of tragedy, it's a bad thing, was the chief of police. And total props to him. But the rest,
Larkin.
Jagmeet Singh,
Yeah.
like all of them,
Yeah.
it just there were some that were sort of mediocre, and this is a terrible thing to have happened
Hmm.
to the Muslim community, which of course it would be a terrible thing if it was a Sikh family that was killed, or a Jewish family that was killed, or a Christian family. Like, it doesn't matter. We're all Canadians.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
That used to be the
But
idea.
yeah,
It
it's
used
it's
to be.
like Animal Farm.
Yeah.
There's some people that are more special than others,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Well.
more equal than others. That was it,
Yeah.
more equal than others.
I noted this as well. I was going through the articles as well on my show today and talking about how the article itself called them Muslim Canadians, and this is a loss for the Muslim community. And I was like, if let's say a Christian family, same thing happened, or a Jewish family, the same
Hmm.
thing happened, would the newspaper be that overt about their religious choices? Is that
Well, there's
important? Why
that.
is that going on?
That's one aspect to it, but the other thing is, okay, Danforth shooting, right?
Hmm.
What was the things that were saying within 24 hours? Not even. It wasn't, oh, this is a hate crime. It was, oh, mental health issues.
Yeah, right, right.
And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not
Good
trying to
point.
conflate the two. I'm saying, like,
What the heck?
we don't even know
We
what
couldn't
this
know.
guy's idea was. Like, it's too soon.
Hmm.
We haven't looked into it.
Hmm.
How come, depending on the background, let's call it, of the person, the perpetrator who's doing it, it's they're either mentally, there's something wrong with them, it's a mental health issue, or it's a hate crime, just
Right.
automatic.
Right.
Like no even pause to breathe.
Yeah. And
Like I
no.
don't know what happened,
Yeah.
but come on.
Yeah. And no acknowledgement either that hitting pedestrians with vehicles is an attack that you see in countries that are not first world, let's just say. And the
Yes.
other part of this is this hasn't been a new thing. And look, if you look up vehicular attacks in Toronto, vehicular like pedestrians hit by a car, there are tons of them all the time. And I'm not saying that
Hmm.
anybody deserves to be hit by a car. I'm saying that
No.
the instances of people getting hit by a car in Toronto has increased exponentially recently. And claiming that the idea, one, that they know what motivated the person in London less than 24 hours after the incident, and
Hmm.
two, having this massive vigil in the middle of a public health crisis, and three,
Yeah.
talking about like talking
The
about
hypocrisy. Oh, it's okay to do that. But I mean,
yeah,
if you're wanting to protest about your freedoms, well, then you're endangering everybody.
right, yeah, right, exactly,
Excuse me, what now?
yeah. How is this and how they're making this case and they're getting it backed up legally because there are places in not Nova Scotia, Newfoundland that have backed up the travel restrictions. There's places in which one was it? Was it Alberta? Pastor Coates, his
Yep.
charter challenge failed. They said, "Oh yeah, no, your
Outside of
charter."
Edmonton.
But but they didn't actually. It wasn't something that they were actually genuinely weighing. They knew what they were going to. In my opinion, they knew what their verdict was going to be before the trial started.
The judiciary in this country is completely
Disgraceful.
failing. They
Yeah,
are.
disgraceful.
They're horrible. They do not do their jobs. They have
No.
made up their minds about how things are, and the politicians won't put them in check because they can't. And that goes back to the 1982 Constitution.
Yep. I
So
I agree with you. I agree with you. And
we
how do you how do you unring that bell? Can you unring that bell? Can you say, listen, we're gonna wave this magic government wand, right? Here's my magic government
Mhm.
wand pen, and say, poof, we're back to the 19 pre Pierre Elliott Trudeau. We're back to that 1960 Constitution because this one's been a disaster and we've cocked it up clearly. And can you do that? Do you think, or do people say, "Oh, we've got all these hard won civil rights things, and we can't possibly do that. The governance structure needs to continue to fail. Like, let's fail forward together, right? Like Canada failing
well, that's
forward together."
pretty much what we're doing, and it's going to take. Well, and okay, so let's go back to like the West and all of our fun times because Jason Kenney just recently did this thing where, in October it's mayoral races in Alberta. So Nenshi and Iverson are out, and we're getting new people in. And so part of that vote, there's also going to be this referendum on equalization. So
What's equalization?
equalization is written into the. You don't know about equalization?
Like the equalization payments made by Alberta to the rest of
Everybody
Canada?
else?
Okay.
Yeah,
There's a
pretty
referendum
much.
on that? You guys get a say?
Yeah.
Since when?
What,
LOL. Come on.
exactly. See, so we're having a referendum whether we want it removed from the Constitution or not,
Okay.
but we have no power to do that.
Yeah. Well, I was
And
gonna
this
say,
is
good
the
luck with
thing,
that.
like, exactly, like who's going to let us away with that?
Yeah.
Like nobody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's
So
like
yeah, so mhm.
it's like the non-binding. There was the NDP. Jagmeet Singh had this motion he brought forward in the House, and he said the government should stop their litigation against the Indigenous people because Canadians are terrible people, and we should stop Canada Day. And the motion passed in the House. Maybe he didn't say we should stop Canada Day, but that was heavily implied, and the news ran with it.
Yes.
But it was a non-binding motion, so the government's going to go, huh? Great. The government recognizes the House's opinion on this, and bye. See you later. We're going to continue doing what we're doing, and like,
Yeah, the
see-
court
see
cases
you
are
guys
going to
later.
continue because Justin Trudeau lied about it to a reporter from APTN. And the guy from APTN even actually said, I beg to differ, Mr. Prime Minister. And he just like continued on with his like little lecture thing that he
Oh my
does.
goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
It was absolutely despicable because of all the people that he should be answering to. It's a reporter from APTN. But
Figures. White
Yeah.
supremacist.
he is.
I'm kidding.
If
I'm
anybody is,
kidding.
he's got the black face to prove it, right?
Justin Trudeau. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
That's an
Yes.
interesting thing. The prime minister who dressed up in blackface more times than he can remember. And I mean, like, if I don't remember me ever dressing up in blackface on purpose ever.
I'm
So
pretty sure I never have.
see, well, right, and I mean, like, college is a thing, but I don't think I did. We ate marshmallows, but we never dressed up in blackface. There was a Chubby Bunny contest. Do you know Chubby Bunny?
Oh,
Put
yeah.
marshmallows in your mouth and try and say Chubby Bunny. It's terrible. So
Yeah.
we had
You could choke
harmless
to death.
fun. We weren't mocking other races during our off time. But that guy, the guy who dressed up in blackface, he's lecturing Canadians on how racist we are while he's throwing out our legal traditions and like the whole idea of innocence until proven guilty to lecture Canadians
And
on
blood
how
guilt and
guilty we are.
yeah.
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 I
Blood
mean,
guilt. Like we weren't even here. Our people weren't even here, but
well,
we're guilty for
right.
whatever happened
I'm a
100
first
years
generation
ago.
Canadian.
Me too. Well, I'm not even. We immigrated whenever I was 6 months old.
Oh,
So
there you go. So you're
6 weeks
there
old.
you
6 weeks
go.
old.
There you go.
So yeah.
See?
Yeah.
I
I just
mean,
barely missed being born here.
there you go. And I mean, like, so it seems odd. And I mean, you've got a lot of people who are in my boat, or maybe not a lot, but enough people who are in my boat. Enough people like Pastor Pasquale. No, not what's it, Pastor.
Oh, Pavlovsky?
That's it, Pavlovsky. Thank you.
Artur Pavlovsky?
That's him. People
Yep.
like that
Calgary.
who came from Eastern Bloc countries, from communist countries, some from Yugoslavia, some from terrible situations to build their lives here because it seemed free, and all of a sudden, we're getting completely screwed out of our once free country by people who are willing to let Alberta pay $1.3 billion for XL and have no intention of coming in and rescuing it. And they knew then they were going to do what they were going to do. They probably knew
Exactly.
then that Trump was going to be out because, where's Dominion again? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Righto.
That's the stuff where we just kind of go,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because once XL comes online, back to XL, and then we'll finish off on free speech. Once XL comes online, then like it's hard to turn off. But because it's not online yet, people are just willing. And 1,000 jobs is a lot, but I don't know.
yeah, but hey,
problems.
we just lost what, 60,000 last month or
Yep.
160,000 what last month?
Right.
So what's another 1,000?
Statistics, yeah. It's all statistics, right?
Yeah. Just play with the numbers. They don't matter.
Okay, Aaron O'Toole says, this is the situation. The Liberals have shut down the committee to study the ins and outs of Bill C-10, and they're trying to rush it through. Your freedom of expression is at risk. So National Post says, you make a video and post it on YouTube, nobody watches it. It does not pop up on searches or on recommended lists. YouTube has buried your video, not on its own initiative, but the direction of the CRTC, perhaps because your video was not Canadian enough or because its message offended government policy. If Bill C-10, which authorizes the CRTC to regulate online media platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify, becomes law, this is a scenario Canadians could face in the not-so-distant future. I have to tell you, as a YouTube creator, I just started a new channel. And I started Canada Poly in 2018. Just started a new channel. And it's getting zero exposure. Like, when I started Canada Poly, the first episode had like 25 views. And like, good job, do this, don't do this, like, whatever.
Yeah.
These videos, big nothing. And I was like, that's an interesting thing. Like, why isn't it in any kind of algorithm? So this is happening already, whether you like it or not. But they want to enshrine
It's
it
been
in
happening
law.
for some time.
Oh, yeah.
Because you've got the throttling and the shadow banning and all of those things that have been going on for a long time. And now it's just even more because of government sanctioning of it.
Yep. Yeah,
I mean, all of this hate stuff that's going on, the hate speech, the white supremacist, all of that stuff, all feeds into the need for Bill C-10.
Yes.
It all feeds onto itself. And like for myself, I'm a writer, and it's a concern. It's a huge concern. And it's something that I've talked about for years now, that anytime, like, if you want to say something to me that's horrible, I'm a ginger, so daywalker, no soul, whatever. I don't care, because I know that's not true. At least I hope it's not true. But like, what does it matter what people? There used to be that thing, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, what happened to that? We were raised on that, and now it's like, oh, everybody needs a safe space, and don't dare. You can say this, but you can't say that.
Yeah. Well, and the things that you're not allowed to say conveniently line up with, like, oh, the WHO says this. So anybody who says anything and has proof of anything that's outside of this is going to be like viciously shamed and dragged through the mud. And
Oh, and even
right,
if the WHO, which I think they said recently that the lockdowns were a bad idea.
did
Oh,
they?
we're ignoring that part of what the
Yeah.
WHO said, but we're going to take this part because it works with what's happening and what we want here.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's nuts.
The
It's
Chi-
all crazy.
the Chinese owned WHO. That one.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
I. Mhm. Oh,
Yep.
are we supposed to say that? Oh, yeah.
These days, man. I mean, I don't know. At some point, it's you've got to look at what's happening and
There was a really good interview recently that Jordan Peterson did with a young girl that escaped North Korea.
yep.
And that I think is essential watching for
Yes.
everybody.
When she's talking about like there's no word in the language for freedom, like they usurped it so
Yeah.
much that it's not worth
Freedom or
talking
for
about.
me or I. You
Yeah.
don't you can't even have me or I. It's we. We like chocolate. We want to go outside. It's not I.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that is freakish.
Incredible.
There's a book called Anthem by Anne Rand. Brilliant, same kind of thing. It's somebody like it's way in the future, this sort of dystopian thing
Mm.
where everybody is plugged into whatever they're supposed to be. They go by numbers, not by their names.
Mm.
And it's about this guy and a girl that escape it.
Mm.
And learn that it wasn't always that way, that being an I actually means something.
Mm.
But and again, you go into the Great Reset and the idea of you will own nothing and be happy. There's a speech by a former slave in the United States that was done. I think it was in Texas in the 1800s, maybe the 1900s, and he was talking about property rights and how part of your property is yourself.
Yep.
So if you own nothing, it means you don't own yourself
Mm.
either. And that girl from Korea, I think, was posted or um, talking about that as well. That you don't own yourself;
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
state owns you.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So, and that's the thing. The thing that everybody seems to be missing is, if you own nothing, you don't own yourself either.
Mm-hmm.
If you aren't allowed to speak, you can only say things that the government sanctions. That's totalitarianism. That is the most horrific thing because if you can't speak, you can't think. And if you can't think, you can't bounce ideas off of people,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
then good ideas die
Mm-hmm.
because you can't shape them or hone them. You
Mm-hmm.
can't. And even like some of this stuff about constantly going on about white supremacy and racism and all of that, what's going to wind up happening if that's not being expressed openly is that those things get pushed underground and then they become violent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like soda in a bottle, right? You
Mm-hmm.
shake it up
Mm-hmm.
and that has to push out somehow and it's going to be a violent explosion. You're looking at the same kind of things. You shut people down and shut them up and they get angry and frustrated
Mm-hmm.
and eventually they're going to attack.
Yeah. I think I'm hoping that the Senate will be a sober second thought to. I know. Is my hope misplaced? Do you think? I'm hoping like not like okay, this is gonna get sent to the Senate, and then they're gonna say like no effing way, and then no,
I hope.
Gilbo's gonna work his magic and do the diehard eyebrows, and that's that. Like
Or maybe climb the CN Tower again
ha,
from the outside, not the inside, like
indeed,
most normal human beings.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredibly dangerous and I don't think that most of the normies know what's going on and the
Mm-hmm.
damage that it can be done from it. And the thing is, I've been posting this poem for probably a decade now, and it's the Robert Niemöller one, First They Came.
Yep.
You start off with it like the people that you might not like, the white supremacists or the Antifas or the BLMs or whatever.
Yeah.
First of all, they shut them down. Not that they're shutting down Antifa, BLM,
No.
but you get the idea.
Yep.
They start
The
off with them and
extremists.
then they go after, yeah, exactly. And then they come after the more mainstream citizen further and further in until the only ones that are left that are free are those elites with their special contacts or, the more equal than the rest of us types.
Right. And we're waltzing into a situation where it's just going to kind of happen through things being more expensive, more of your income going to
Hmm.
housing, more of your income going to food, more of your income going to energy, and therefore you'll use less of it. They told us what they were going to do, and they're doing it.
Hmm.
And like,
Yep.
uh, I don't know if and what they're doing as well is much more complicated than even the regular person is willing to engage with, because it is complicated. It's difficult to understand. It's happening at multiple levels, from municipal to provincial to federal, and different people are enacting it in different ways, and that adds to the confusion. But fundamentally, we're being marched into this, whether we like it or not, and
Hmm.
there are things that are happening that are unstoppable, um,
Hmm.
like the XL pipeline. That's no
Yep.
longer right. Like that's the $1 billion
Hmm.
there. This is the bad choice of an election it shouldn't be. Like it shouldn't be the way it is, right? But
Yep.
there's nothing anybody can do about it. And so, how do
Well,
you?
and if you try, even if you talk against it and say, "Wait a second, something isn't right here. Can we
Mhm.
please look into it and have an investigation?" It's immediately shut down, and you're a crackpot, far right extremist.
Yep.
It's
And
like,
you're
no, no, I'm
probably an
just want to
anti-vaxer.
know. Yeah, well, yeah, that too.
I think that
Yep.
that's just quickly. I think that the anti-vax label is very interesting, because they built for years like an infrastructure of making people who are uh, weary of vaccine injury looking like crackpots, like you were saying, and
Mhm.
now it's like grafting right on top of anybody who articulates anything outside of what is approved. And
Yep.
like Scientology works like this a little bit, right? Cults work like this. Like
Hmm.
if there's a person who doesn't believe, we gotta like that person is what's the Scientology word? It's a non. Um,
Oh, I don't know.
oh, they have a word for it. It's like
They're
non-helpful
crazy
person.
people anyway.
Well, yeah, but they'll like follow you at an airport, and like if you're against, if there's a term that Scientologists use for somebody who's like bad for them, and it could be like your parents, it could be like your siblings, like, and I think that
And that happens in other religious groups as
I'm
well.
sure. Oh, I'm sure.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I've seen I saw Going Clear, I think it was, and like and the person was like documented their like 2.5 year harassment because they were leaving the church, and they didn't agree, and they were
Hmm.
vocal about not agreeing, and they were, I don't know if they were giving church secrets. It's been a while since I watched it, but it feels very cultish. It
Hmm.
feels like if you're not on board, we're gonna burn you. Like we're gonna starve you out. We're gonna find you, and we're gonna get rid of you,
Yeah.
because
Well, there's stories of people that have left the Jehovah, like that were raised Jehovah Witnesses and have left, and the same kind of things go on where their own family members will pretend like they don't know them.
yeah, yeah,
Like it's
that would
awful.
be jarring, eh? Like
Yeah.
that's like gaslight. So like having experienced a year and a half long psychological torturing from the government, I can say that when the
Mhm.
news gaslights you, that's kind of jarring. But like when your own family would do it, and not that
But then, isn't that happening? Because you
yeah,
have people who, in families, that one has had the vaccine and they're pro-vaccine, and another one is skeptical,
hmm,
and that one that's had the vaccine is shaming the one who hasn't.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure that happens. I'm sure it does. That
It's
would
it's
be
happening.
that would be terrible. I don't doubt it.
I've
And
I've heard stories on a regular basis about that.
yeah, but see, here's the thing though, too. That happened with Trump. Like, and
Mhm.
I think it's more of a byproduct of the brainwashing rather than a byproduct of people having strong feelings one way or the other about the president of the United States, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the vaccine. Like, this is a thing. Like, when you get married to somebody, generally you're like, this is the agreement that we're gonna do this together. You know, we're in it
Mhm.
for whatever. And
Yep.
usually in sickness and in health is a thing, right? But that doesn't mean like we agree
The
on
idea.
vaccines. It means, yeah, the idea of sickness and health. Like if you get sick, I'm gonna not leave because you're sick, right? But people don't
Yeah.
necessarily think about what that means. But part of that is how you're going to deal with illness, and like if somebody this is easily something that could fracture families, that could have consequences for many years. And in the same way that, like, if a husband likes Trump and is open about that, and a wife really doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
say is a teacher and really doesn't like Trump, that could fracture family in a similar way. But they're forcing the vaccine thing, whereas the Trump thing was just pushed by the news media, etc. It's an interesting parallel.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And there's a lot of them that are going on. I mean, you can start
Mm-hmm.
tracing things just piece by piece. I've heard of people who are PPC supporters who their significant other was absolutely appalled because of
Mm-hmm.
the claim that PPC is a white supremacist racist group,
Right. Well,
which
I think
was, of course.
the point of the point of making those allegations is to do that, to drive that wedge between people who would naturally support, right?
Well,
And
and you think about it, I mean, that all feeds into free speech because the speech is being so manipulated
mm-hmm.
that even if you support something like PPC, or you love Donald Trump and what he did for America, or you're scared about the vaccine or whatever it might be, you're afraid to say anything because that it's the speech is so manipulated, like it's self-censoring, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So,
You have to self censor. There's no way to survive. Like if
mhm,
people and even like even something as simple as vaccine, like the fact that people's day to day conversations are like, "Hey, how's the weather today? Love the sunshine. Did you get your vaccine?"
mhm.
And it's like, what?
Yeah.
When was your last Pap smear, by the way? Like what? Like
Yeah, yeah.
are
When
we
did you
on
have your last anal
first?
probe?
Yeah, are we on first name basis? Like, did we go for dinner and I forgot? Like,
Did
what the
you
heck?
kiss me first?
Yeah,
Like,
right. Are you gonna buy me
seriously.
dinner here? Come on. Um, so it seems like a little odd, this chess move. And you're right. It's all about manipulation of language. All of a sudden, your vaccine status is everybody else's business. Why is that? That's a really
Yeah.
really strange thing, right? And it comes down to speech. I think I agree with
Yeah, I think so. I think it's all part of the same thing because whenever speech starts to be manipulated, when people have to start self-censoring, whenever there is censorship going on, and I mean the other thing is you look at some of the sources, and there is actually a documentary about this as well. And for some reason the name escapes me, but it's about social media and how and it was done by those people who helped to create and develop social media. But because of the algorithms that are in place, you have like people sort of more on our side of things are getting fed that are ideas.
you. Mm-hmm.
We're not seeing the stuff that the other side, so to speak, is
Mm-hmm.
seeing.
Yep.
So you look to this morning, I went on to BBC. I must have wanted to hurt myself or something, but I went on to the BBC and saw on their page, it's all this stuff about COVID
Mm-hmm.
and doctors being like any doctor that speaks out about it is a quack.
Mm-hmm.
All of the people who are anti-vaxxers are equivalent to far right.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite often in the same sentence.
Yep.
So this is what people on the left are seeing constantly. It's a constant feed of that. So they're thinking anybody that goes outside of that narrative
Mm-hmm.
is a crazy crackpot.
Mm-hmm.
And then on our side, the crazy crackpots apparently,
Mm-hmm.
we're kind of seeing the same kind of things because we're seeing more of the stuff that's, you know, we're seeing the doctors question it. We're seeing legitimate scientists saying, hey, I mean, you even look at the climate crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And you have someone like Patrick Moore who has
Mm-hmm.
been so marginalized, and
Yeah.
yet he was the champion
Yeah.
of.
The Yeah, sorry. The climate crisis and masking and this COVID crisis have a lot
Mhm.
of very interesting parallels because there are a lot of situations, there are a lot of things that you just have to accept this climate science on its face. And if you do any digging,
Mhm.
you're like, well, there's holes in this, and they say,
Yeah,
"Are you a bigot?" No,
yeah,
close the door, please.
pretty much.
Um, and and so
It's
I mean,
daddy time.
it's very interesting. Yeah, we're gonna have to wrap up because I gotta go. So any final words? I think that this is an interesting conversation. There's lots of parallels. We could probably talk for another hour, but my time is up. So
But it's daddy time.
daddy time. That's
The
right.
kids have
So-
spoken.
Indeed. So Jilly, where can they find you? And any last words? Last words first, and then where can they find you?
Okay. They can find me at jillydavis.com. That's all my links are there. And last words, I think to me, the big thing right now is to find a way where we can speak and be heard.
Mhm.
And I don't know where we're going to be able to do that or how we're going to be able to do it, but it's something that we really have to start focusing on, because that's going to be the big fight. Because if you can speak, then you can exchange ideas and you can start questioning things that otherwise you can't.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think I've said this a lot all through when I ran last time for the PPC, and I did run, and it was fun. But I said, if you can't identify the problem, if you can't speak about the problem, you can't solve the problem, and it's at the core
Exactly.
of getting things moving in a positive way. And the more they shut down free speech, the more they silence their critics, the less represented we are as citizens. So it's very, very it's important. But I don't know that we're going to write. I don't know that we're going to write our trajectory in time. So we'll see. You can find my stuff at CanadaPoly.com, CanadaReport.co. That's my scratch pad where I'm adding ideas and things that I'm working on. And SpeakingMoistly.co has the back catalog. Usually it's me and Greg, and recently Jilly has decided to join. So all of our back catalog is available there. Thanks for watching, everybody. Here's the Prime Minister to play us out. Maybe.
Heart, speaking moistly. Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.